Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today, we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
All right, good morning and welcome to National Discourse, the beautiful morning of Wednesday. And of course, today we are bringing you details of a kind of a rundown on the killings we've had in Nigeria, according to what was published by the Senate President Bukola Saraki, in a bid to strike a balance between him and the Inspector General of Police. Now, he furnished us with a list of what has happened, from January 1st to April 29th. We are talking about the killings, caused by Herdsmen / Boko Haram. So today we are looking at the killings caused by Boko Haram or the herdsmen in Nigeria, especially the one we've noticed or we've experienced from January 1st to 29th of April 2018. Now, this is going to be our focus today. Our numbers will be hitting the screen very shortly. You can get us your infield, or you get us your questions, through that line. And of course, our social media handles will soon be rolling on the scroll bars. Now, I have someone in the studio with me, but we'll go for a short break there. When we come back, we'll introduce the person and go straight into the business of today. I still remain your host, Uche Uduma. Good morning. Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history.
It's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today, we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Now, you welcome back from that short break. I have with me Ayuba Ili, of course, our regular analyst on National Discourse, having to do justice to the topic we have in our hand today. You're welcome, Ayuba.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming through the studio again.
For having me.
Now, on Thursday, the special assistant to the Senate President on International Relations, Bami Kole Omisoro, explained that the reason that the Inspector General of Police has been summoned for the third time, of course, we know that he never honored those invitations, is because of the spate of killings we are having in our country. Like I said before for that break, now we have a record of the killings we've experienced in some middle belt states in Nigeria from January 1st to 29th of April. Sir, the killings we have in Nigeria, before we move over to this list, from January 1st to April of course, that is where our list ended. But from what we are seeing now, and of course, let's still recall that some persons were buried yesterday, and I think on that note, we'll observe a minute silence for those souls that were buried yesterday. You know, the last set of people that were killed in Benue State, talking about the 2 priests and 17 people, the one that happened in church. So let's observe a minute silence for the departed souls of those victims of a herdsman attack. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Amen. All right, now getting back to the killings we are experiencing in Nigeria and the spate of insecurity we are looking at. Look at the IGP on one end, look at security on one end, look at our lawmakers on one end. Where do you think we're getting it wrong?
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. First, I would like to say that the killings in the country at the moment is cause for concern for every right-thinking Nigerian. You know, it raises questions about our security apparatus and the need for us to double up our efforts in fighting, you know, crime and criminality, especially as it regards attacks and killings. Like you have rightly said, from the records we have seen, you know, between January to April, over 86 attacks. That's almost like saying there is attack in a certain village somewhere, maybe after every 3 days, if you like. There's an attack going on. And then there's somebody, there's one child, there's one woman, there's one father, there's one uncle, there's one brother being killed in the process. And that's why even yesterday, the representative of Nigeria to the United Nations Security Council, Professor Tijani Bande, revealed that over 14 million people have been affected either directly or indirectly by these killings.
And then let's not forget again, sorry to enter there. Let's not forget again that it's not just, it doesn't just end where people are killed.
Yeah.
You still have people that have been displaced.
Of course.
You know, people just lose their homes because of this terrorism.
The effect, you cannot even, in fact, you cannot even quantify the effect of one life being lost. Let's take an example of a breadwinner of a family. All right, a husband who has maybe 5 children or maybe 10 or more, especially in the northern region of Nigeria. Now he has a wife who is just a full-time housewife, right? And those kids, who takes care of those children? Eventually what will happen is those kids, if care is not taken, they would end up on the streets, and when they end up on the streets, they become touts. Some of them become touts, and some of them become criminals that in the end of the day, government will now have to start struggling, you know, how to curb, you know, the criminality committed by those people. So you see how it's a cycle. All right, it's a cycle. So you can't really, you know, quantify the effect of it. And then coming back to, you know, the issue, we said more than 80 attacks were recorded. It's alarming. And that's why you see the issue of our lawmakers raising alarm. They are not doing it unnecessarily. I believe that, yes, there might be some political undertone. Maybe it's an opportunity for some of them. But ideally, that's what we expect them to actually do, to raise alarm. Because they are our lawmakers, they represent this country. Virtually every locality, every village have a representative in the National Assembly. And that's what they are there to do, to raise alarm. That these killings, you know, the killings is affecting, you know, the people.
Okay, now, I asked the question earlier, like, looking at these 3 sectors, you said the IG, they are talking about the lawmakers, and I really want to talk about, I don't want to go deep into Nigerian, please, but the question is, where are we getting it wrong? When it has to do with, you know, the rate of killings we're experiencing, and you talk about security, which is the utmost priority of every government. that I didn't really want to say let the government be at the middle, IG here, and then you have the lawmakers. But looking at these three bodies, right, where are we getting it wrong, or where are we getting it right? Because if the government of the day, or the incumbent government, cannot guarantee the safety of lives and properties of its citizenry, which is his first, should be his first priority, and which should be the first right that the citizens should enjoy from the government of the day, where are we getting it wrong?
Well, I'm really careful about putting blames on one, arm of the government or the other, but the immediate one that we can see, right, the immediate one that everyone can, draw sum up, is that all fingers, all eyes are on the president, the executive. That's where all eyes are on, right? Because if you ask, they will tell you that he has sworn to protect the lives and properties, of Nigerians. So the easiest, person to blame is the president. But I don't want to just blame the president, because the president is not working alone.
He has machineries.
He has
people.
Yes,
he has positioned to do this job.
Exactly. He has
now,
people he's working
peradventure,
with.
those people are not doing this job, to the taste of Nigerians, because this is democracy.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be to the taste of the president.
Yes.
We know it's a political appointment, but all is tended, towards, or is geared to making sure that, there is security, and then the democracy we're practicing, is a transparent one. When you put someone in a position of authority, and then a very sensitive one as this, we're talking about security, and of course we are still talking about the IG, and then he is not living to expectation or something. What do you think should be done in that instance?
Well, it's easy to look at the IG as the only person that is in charge of security in this country, but it goes beyond the IGP. There are other service chiefs, right, that are also mandated with the security of
well,
this
we're
country.
talking about
For instance,
internal security.
Yes, internal security.
Which Nigerian police, it just rests on their shoulders.
Yes,
first.
but you need to understand that the IG of police is still under a ministry that has a minister. Talking about the interior minister, Abdurrahman Dambazo is the minister of interior. So if we are talking about, the IGP, let's not forget that he is under a ministry. Has the lawmaker, have our lawmakers summoned the Minister of Interior?
Now hold on. When the IGP was summoned to the National Assembly, that he refused to go for 3 times, did we get any statement from the ministry?
Well, the ministry,
let's talk
to
about
the best
the
of my
Minister of
knowledge,
Interior first.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, the ministry have been quiet.
Good.
Right
now, when the ministry is quiet,
it's dicey and it's very sensitive, because we don't even know who the IGP is even accountable to.
The IG, according to the constitution,
or the
reports to
minister?
the president.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, that is where the blame is actually going to him. Now, at the instance that he refuses to honor the invitation of the National Assembly, the law does not provide anything for anybody to do to him.
Only the president.
The thing is for National Assembly to report him straight to the president.
Which they did.
There was no provision for him to be reported to the Minister of Interior. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, this is why he's standing a kind of alone from that ministry. He's under the ministry. But you're talking about internal security, is the IG, and it reports straight to the president.
Well,
that is how dicey it is.
Yes. Yesterday, I know that there was a meeting between principal officers of the National Assembly and the president. And the Senate president was there, and some other, Godswill Akpabio, Danjuma Goje, and some other members of the National Assembly. And it was all, following the accusations by the Senate president that there is a plot by the IGP to frame him up, for some reasons or the other.
Trying to bring some prisoners or people that are in behind the bars, to bring them down to Abuja.
Yes. So, yes, the National Assembly have done their bits by reporting the IGP. It's now left for the president to take an action, which he said he told them that he is going to get back to them. But
he's been getting back to us since. Can I still strike your mind that, or let's to refresh our memories, that there was a direct kind of disobedient, directly to the president from the IGP, and he gave him a direct instruction to go to Benue State or relocate to Benue State. And when the president got to Benue State, he was nowhere to be found. And then he raised that alarm. And the truth becomes, the question is, the alarm was raised for who? Because in you lies the whole powers and authority to, handle that matter. Yeah. And you are raising the alarm. I'm talking about the president now.
Yes, yeah.
Now that he told him to relocate and he did not relocate. And then the question is, what exactly do you want the populace to do?
Okay, well,
now, if there was a direct disobedience, to the president and nothing was done, and then something happened in the National Assembly, and there was a direct report from the National Assembly to the president and nothing was done. What do you think we can do in a state as this? When we think security is not taken as an utmost priority in Nigeria?
Well, the best way I will react to this is that I will say that because I believe that the president received briefings not only from the IGP, but from the DSS, from the Nigerian Army, from other security apparatus. He received briefings from all of those places. And then I want to assume that perhaps the president have information that we don't have. He have information on security issues that we don't have. And there was a statement by the presidency that the president have, reprimanded the IGP of police after that incident, quietly. Now, we cannot ascertain that. There is a lot that is going on that we don't really get to know. So, I will assume that the president, may have his reasons for not taking, action.
A public action.
A public action
but
at the moment.
He raised a public alarm.
But
right?
yes, he raised an alarm. But which shows that he is bothered by it.
Good.
Now, what I would just like to say is that the president should know that Nigerians are watching, and your body language is symbolic to Nigerians having confidence in your government or not. You may have taken actions secretly. You might have done some things not without the knowledge of the public, but your body language is symbolic. It's very important because people need to know, people need to understand that you are on this matter. How else do you do it? That's the bigger question for me. So, whatever the president is doing, the presidency may come out to tell us that yes, he is on this matter, he is looking into it, he is doing that. As far as we are concerned in the public, we don't get to know anything until you let us know what you have really done.
All right, Ayuba will be going for a short break and we'll come back. When we get back, we'll go straight into the list we have at hand. Please stay with us.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history,
it's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today, we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has another tone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history,
it's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Right, so we'll come back from that short break, and you can, get us now, or we'll be able to pick your calls now. For the missed calls, you can do well to call back. Now, moving straight to this list, Ayuba. In January alone, we had over 26 killings in January, just January, a month, right? From January 1st to January 31st, we had over 26 attacks. Same thing with February, very close. And then you have March, and let's even look at January killings alone. On the 1st, 73 people were killed. Of course, if you can remember how that incident went, that was after 31st, Now, you still have these killings coming this way. The same January, you have 73 killed in Logo and Goma LGAs in Benue State. The same January 1st, you have 2 killed in Awil LGA in Nasarawa State. The same January, you have 25 killed in Kena LGA, Nasarawa State. Now, all this took place in a day in Nigeria. What does that tell about security?
Doing terrible. We are doing very, very terrible. There are 3 major areas that the current government promised Nigerians to make an impact, which is security, corruption, and the economy. And sadly, the government have done worse in
the 3 measures.
Maybe in this, we can say in the 2, because there is so much noise, and then there seem to be an impact that is being made in the fight against corruption. But in this other 2, there is nothing that even appears to be any that appears to suggest that we are making any progress at all. The economy and the security. Worst is the security. Where you have several attacks in one day.
Just in a day, we lost close to 100 people.
So
just in a day.
So it's time that we maybe, part of the problem that I have with our system is that the same system we have in the 1980s and 70s, the same modus operandi we adopt to tackle issues, is the same thing that we're still adopting till now.
Now, let's talk about the checkpoints.
Who does that?
Let's talk about the checkpoints we see. Now, most times on your way, probably on the highway, I really don't want to talk about the interstate. Now, on the highway, you discover that we have so many military checkpoints, and have so many police checkpoints. And then even going through our routes in town here, you discover you have so many checkpoints. Now, the question is, how do those people, boycott all these checkpoints? Are you saying that the checkpoint just ends on the road? What happens to the bushes, the bush path, the villages? What happens there before we get to the borders?
Even the checkpoints inside cities and towns, what do they do there? What do they do? Inside Abuja here, what do they do? It will surprise you to know that 10 cars will pass. The drivers may not see the need to search any of them until when you refuse to give them money. That's when you become in fact, searching you is like victimizing you. It's not like a duty for them to ensure that, they search, every suspicious vehicle.
Now,
but when heavily, what they do is they collect money, and that's it. And this trend, we thought that at some point, it has stopped. But it seems as if they are just starting. If in the federal capital, in town, Aso Drive here, just this Aso Drive here, around that roundabout, in the evenings, usually there is a police checkpoint there. In the night, in the evening time. Go there and see. Once you get there, just give them 15 naira. Whatever you are carrying inside the vehicle, who cares? If you like, carry rifles or explosives inside the vehicles. Do they check you? Just give 15 naira. It has sorted it will sort you out. Or just put tinted glass on a jeep. You can. In fact, you don't even have to give anything. You will pass expressly. They will even salute you. It happened in Maiduguri one time. At the peak of the insurgency, a tinted, jeep came, and then it was Boko Haram members that were inside that vehicle, but they didn't know. But this is how to humiliate our security agencies, to humiliate our security forces. This is what they did. After passing by the first time, they gave them some amount of money, right? The same vehicle went ahead and turned
back.
When they turned back, they came. As soon as they got to that point, they just opened fire on the military men in that checkpoint. That's humiliation of the highest order. It simply shows that if you don't do your job, you think it's not going to affect you. It will.
Okay, now let's look at police trying to, some policemen, of course we know it's not all of them, trying to collect some money from people. Now look at their funding. Can we look at how those people are being taken care of? Now I'm not trying to make an excuse for corruption, because that is still a corrupt act, being exhibited by our uniformed people.
Yes.
Now, look at their funding. Do you think the police, as security outfits, they are being taken care of?
The security sector or the security industry, the police and the rest of them, they are not the only...
I think we have a call here. Sorry. Hello? Hello, good morning.
Yes.
Hello?
Hello? My name is Timothy. I'm calling from Jos. Can you hear me?
Sorry, you said you are who?
Timothy calling from Jos.
Timothy calling from Jos. Okay. Please, can you speak up? We can hear you now.
Yes. The public health feelings in this country, is another thing that, has become like a thorn on the floor. Who has a concern for the country? And if to compare or to see what this government is doing about it, it has been so abysmal. They have failed completely. And the primary responsibility of any government, as you get at earlier steps, is to protect life and property. And if that is removed, you understand, then you will have a lawless society where people are massacred just in their things. So Nigeria now has nothing like security. Look at what is happening between Senate and legislature is the only difference between a democracy and a dictatorship. So if the ID can disrespect the Senate or the legislature, then it has disrespect the whole Nigeria, the whole Nigeria. The people that are here are elected. The ID is appointed. You just need to go here for the sake of Nigerian democracy. Don't look at the faces of people that are here. All here and explain. You continue to answer some questions. It's not by force. You continue to answer some questions. Then go here and show your presence. Show that you respect the institution of democracy in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling there. Before you react to that, we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, you start with reacting to what Solomon, the call from Jos, told us. Please stay with us.
Welcome to National Discourse.
Current affairs.
We must not extricate anybody from corruption. If any one of them is found wanting, the due course and the law must take its course.
Nation building.
Administration is slightly different from the last one in the fight against corruption.
We need to really task our leaders, who are the religious leaders, from the emir, from the bishops, from whoever they can.
Some of our village markets, there are people, they call them in Hausa yang nakama. They are like agberu in the markets. Whatever anything is not useful to you is not important to you.
Politics.
What happened in Benue might be political. It still has an undertone, not political, dated way back. If you follow history,
it's interactive.
Not part of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it will not be good for us.
When they gather their people, they tell them, these Hausa people are your enemies. When the Hausas gather together, they tell them, these Igbo people are your enemies. When the Yoruba people gather together, they say the same thing.
Who are we? We are just from the background. And today we are here in TSTV. And that is why we must propagate our own.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
All right, you're welcome back, and of course we have a call here first. Let's start with this call before we continue. Oh, we lost the call. Okay, now Ayuba, continue with what the last speaker said. He was talking about how the issue of security has not been taken serious in Nigeria, and of course the Nigerian police and all that should wake up. Of course, still in line with exactly what we are talking about. So probably I beg you to continue from where you were before we had a call.
Well, I would just say that yes, our government, our legislative arm, our legislators needs to just do more. Talking about funding, you are raising an issue about funding, and it has always been argued that our security agents are not being paid well, they are not being this and that. But our security agents are not they are not the only set of Nigerians that are being underpaid in this country.
So why is it an issue, right?
Yes, we have so many other outfits that don't even receive as much as the security agents receive. So it shouldn't be an excuse to be engaging in unprofessional practices. It shouldn't be an excuse, because the truth is, money will never be enough. It will never be enough. Double the salaries of our security. I'm not saying that they should be underpaid. Nobody deserves to be underpaid in this country. People deserve to be paid well in a way that they can be comfortable. They can at least live a comfortable life, be able to fend for their families and so on. It's not only the security for agencies, for crying out loud. Because if we are talking about fighting corruption, if the same corruption that thrives in the ministries is the same corruption that, after all, the security, the security outfits have a ministry too. So it's the same civilian, the same man that is in the ministry. If he commits one corrupt practice or the corrupt act or the other, it will affect the same man who is in the bush or on the streets as a security man.
All right. So I asked that question
it's
because
not just
normally,
about the money.
They will tell you, if you eventually get to NEPA office to go and pay your bill, or you are being disconnected, you're going there to pay your bill or to ask them why you don't have light or you have light issues, and on getting to NEPA office you discover that they're using I pass my neighbor generator. What will be your fate? Like, let's bring it down to the Nigerian police. Now, why I was talking about the issue of funding is they are the first apparatus that should fight corruption. Now, like the issue of NEPA office, and you want to fight corruption, and you, on getting there, you discover that there are some elements of corruption there. What is our fate as a country?
The fight against corruption, let me just restate, like I said earlier, that is not the exclusive job or responsibility of anybody. Even the anti-corruption campaign that we're talking about, of the current administration, it will end up a ruse if there is no proper effort or deliberate effort to engage the public, to sensitize the public, to understand the need or to see reasons why they need to fight this corruption thing. It's not a fight that is exclusive to the police or the EFCC or ICPC or no. Everybody must be involved. If you are a permanent secretary, if you are a director in a ministry, you are a commissioner, you are a teacher, you are a principal of a public school, whatever you are, everybody is involved. So it's the same thing. If the policeman on the street feels he's being underpaid, therefore he'll be collecting bribes and allowing crime to go on. It's the same thing that the principal of a secondary school or public school will tell you that my pay is not even enough. So once an allocation comes for a certain project in the school, you pocket it.
Okay, now looking at the Nigerian police, right? Let's look at the civil defense corps. We're trying to look at the people that owns. We know Nigerian police is internal security. Now let's look at the major security outfits that we have, and if they've been able to help in this fight against terrorism or insurgency that we're experiencing in the country. We have Nigerian Civil Defense Corps. We have the military, of course. They're supposed to be saddled with external security, if I'm correct.
Yes.
But whilst they are still here, we still see them at checkpoints.
Yes.
So they are still, part of the fight against insurgency. Now, you have what do they call these people again? The DSS. I know they are supposed to be a part of the police, and they have other outfits. Now, when we have those people on ground, someone have sat where you sat in this same program and argued with me that the reason why we are having insecurity is because the policemen don't have enough manpower to service the country. That the population of the police is less equal to Nigerian population. And I was trying to remind him that we still have some security outfits, who are being still saddled with, responsibility as well as what the police could do. Now, when you have the police leave their core responsibility that has to be with internal security and going to judge marital matters, what is that? And, how can the police retrace their steps back? Most times you visit police station and the cases you're hearing there, they're very funny. Husband and wife issue, police will carry it in their head.
Yeah.
They will try to handle the matter. This person is owing this person, please takes it off.
Yes.
Now, what are the core responsibility of the Nigerian police?
Internal security.
Good.
That is it. That's the core responsibility. And,
so many times the IGP have come out to say police is not an apparatus to recover debts. But you discover that 90% of the cases you see in police stations are debt recovery. Does it not misplace? It's not a misplaced priority. It doesn't affect, their primary duty, which is internal security.
Well, internal security is broad, and if we go by internal security, it eventually, when we continue to dig deep and we continue to go further, you eventually see that yes, even issues of conflict between two persons will eventually mean, it
I didn't say two persons. We're talking about husband and wife misunderstanding.
Yes.
The police handles it.
Yes, it depends on the gravity. Even the relationship between husband and wife can get so sour, it can get so bad to the point where even the authorities have to intervene.
Trust me, I know exactly what I'm saying.
Yes,
I
understand. I understand the dimension. I understand the dimension
and
where you're coming from.
at some point, you start arguing within yourself, like, is it what these people are supposed to be doing?
Yes. I understand I understand the direction you're coming from. There are some minute issues. There are some issues that are so micro that the police doesn't really necessarily have to, involve itself with. But when it escalates to issues of, violence against, the spouse or, killing, because we have had it in this country where one kills,
now,
and all.
The ones
so
I've seen
can get so bad.
The ones I've seen them reacting to does not have any element of violence. It wasn't even getting there, right? Yes. Now, a husband suspects a wife was doing certain things outside and he runs to the Nigerian police and they pick it up.
I agree with you totally. I'm not disagreeing with you. I have seen, because from personal experience, I have seen where they will tell you that they are here to make peace. All right, they will tell you that they are here to resolve, the differences.
Now, I have seen where some women were brought to police station. What is the problem? That they were exchanging words, and I listened carefully. I haven't tried reading the statements of the women. Like, there was no issue of threat.
Yes.
In the statement. Yes. Nothing like, probably I will kill you,
yes,
or what I will do to you. It was just a normal exchange of words.
Oh, yes.
And then someone went out and called the Nigerian police.
Yes.
They came and picked these people.
Let me tell you why they will do that. Because like we are talking about corruption, it is an opportunity for them to get some money. Yes. It's an opportunity because it's easy for them to jump into such issues, because in the end of the day, the person that went to report, right,
must give something.
So that's the whole idea. It's not really about they are not necessarily after resolving the issue, as it were, but it's because something will come out of it, and in the end of the day, they are going to get something to go home with. That's the issue of the corruption we're talking about.
Now, how can the Nigerian police, get back to their core responsibilities, internal security? Because we can't have Nigerian police, to be frank, and we are having the spate of killings in the country, and they are coming one after the other. Something happens in a day. You have 4 different kind of killings. Over 100 people are killed in a day. What happens to the core responsibility and the people that are saddled with it first?
There are so many reasons why we are not, just like you said, one of your speakers came here and highlighted the fact that we don't have enough manpower. I wouldn't argue with that, because to an extent it's true, right? But at the same time, it's not the only reason why we are not being able to, nip this issue in the bud. There are so many other issues. And the issue of, the orientation, that mindfulness of responsibility, that thought that tells you, look, I have an obligation, not just to myself but to my country. In the end of the day, it is patriotism that will still, make some of these things work. It's our patriotism, how patriotic we are to our country.
And you think it's a personal decision,
it's
right?
A personal decision.
It's not something that has to do with a collective idea.
At all.
Or what the government thinks you should
do. At all. The government cannot spell every step you are going to take at every, every point. In the end of the day, you are left with your conscience to judge and to decide, to take some decisions that you feel is right, because as we all know, there are so many holes in our constitution and in the acts establishing some of these our bodies, because it cannot expressly spell out everything. In the end of the day, some things are left to your discretion as an individual. So, but while you are taking those decisions, do you put your country first?
Now, talking about conscience and talking about trying to be patriotic, putting your country first. Now, what would make someone pick up arms to go kill people? You're talking about your fellow citizens. And let's come back to the killers themselves. Let's shift a bit from the security apparatus. Now, if we have conscience, right, and we are patriotic Nigerians, which means you love your country, what would make people, what is the gravity of ill feeling that will make someone, a group of persons, pick up arms? And you are not fighting government institutions, you are fighting people. Now, look at the burial that took place, I think yesterday. You know, this is where people were burying. Of course, we had Oshibanjo was present there himself and other people. And I watched very closely and I saw tears, dropping from the eyes of the government officials. Now, this tells us that they are humans too. They have feelings, that this shouldn't be happening. And it's still going back to conscience. Now, the people, the perpetrators, if they are watching this clip, where lies that patriotic?
There is nothing patriotic.
I mean,
there is nothing patriotic. It's hate. It's an expression of hate.
To the extent to pick up arms against your fellow citizens.
Yes. It's easy to, hate, when it gets to a certain level, it becomes easy to kill. And I want you to know that it didn't start, the hatred for one group or one individual or the other, it doesn't start in one day and then and then grows up to become so serious that you can actually kill someone. It doesn't start in one day. Some of them, if you trace their history, if you trace their background right from childhood, you don't know what they were being told by their parents. You don't know what they grew up hearing from their religious leaders. You don't know what they were being told in the schools that they attend. The orientation that they were given. Some were given the orientation that it's okay to kill in certain, in
certain circumstances.
In certain circumstances.
Good.
Right? So they don't feel the kind of remorse you feel, or the kind of, the empathy you have, or the compassion you have for the families affected. They don't have it, because their conscience, to an extent, I would say, is dead for you to go to that extent. So there is that kind of person. You don't even start talking about patriotism to that person first. No. But that person needs to be rehabilitated. He needs he needs to be rebirthed, if there is anything like that. That's the summary of it.
Now, talking about reorientation, and I think this appeal goes to our families and, of course, religious bodies. We should become careful what we say, what we do, because there's something about religious sentiment in Nigeria. It works. It kills faster than which is the worst disease, Ebola disease, that can kill you less than 24 hours. Let's become careful what we tell our people to do. Let's become careful what we preach from our different holy books. And let's become careful the kind of utterances we make, even in public places. Those things can instigate people to do certain things. Like I said, I don't see the reason why, to the extent of grievance someone will have, then you just pick up arms and you are fighting your fellow citizens.
Barrister Uche, let me shock you. Do you know that some of them they are committing these crimes in the name of God? Yes, is that bad? Perhaps the person grew up, from a background where he's been told that if you kill so and so and so and so a person, you gain favor from God. You'll be blessed by God. So, do you think that if that person kills another person, it's an achievement?
This is so wrong, and I think we need to stop it. Seriously.
Yes.
There is no reason why you should kill a fellow citizen. Now, look at those people lying down in that casket. What is the joy you're deriving from it? Now, there is no reason, whichever way, that we have to kill one another. because of some grievances or whatever benefit you think you're going to get at the end of the day. The truth is, if you kill by sword, you must die by sword. Now, talking about rehabilitation, now we have this set of people, so much in the country. I think the numbers have grown. Now, we had Boko Haram. Talking about 2014 preceding election, of course, we saw the administration telling us in 3 months to overcome Boko Haram. Now, yes, we might say that the activities of Boko Haram is a bit, clamped down a bit, but we are seeing a dangerous group surfacing in the name of the Fulani herdsmen.
How sure are we that it is not
they are
Boko
not
Haram?
rebranding?
They're rebranding themselves.
Yeah, to another name. We are not sure because we have not seen any Fulani herdsmen that have been duly prosecuted in the court of law, because, like you said, they still remain guilty until proven by a court of competent jurisdiction. But when these people keep doing this, let's just pick this call. Hello.
Yeah. Good morning.
Please.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Can you tune down? Can you just tune down the volume of your TV set?
Yeah, only set down the volume of my TV set.
Alright, please. What's your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Alaji. I'm calling from Bauchi.
Bauchi State. Alaji Rabiu Danjuma, right?
Yeah.
Alright, sir.
Actually, I want to delve into this harassment Boko Haram attacks that you're discussion now.
Yes, sir.
Like you said earlier on, there is no any other importance of any human being killing one another. And our religion tells us, both Christianity and Muslim, that for you to kill a human being is one of the most very, very bad things in the sight of God. So I think the issue is just more than harassment or harm. You have to look at the political issue. Politicians brought all this problem into the country. Because, you see, if you want to get a truth, or that everybody should know, is that, as you can see, people are used to doing corruption, carrying money and carrying money when they want it. And now, the present government that comes in to say no to corruption. And those people that are doing corruption will do all things possible to make sure that they have continued doing their own corruption. I think this is the genesis of all the problems that are today. You hear Delta, you hear Hadme, you hear Boko Haram is not part of the issue of about Boko Haram is something entirely different. But the issue of Hadme, issue of Delta, it's all the after-effects of this corruption fight. So I want you to look at it critically. I have come in here, I'll let anybody and say, oh, okay, I'll come in here another form. But this is the type of why I'm going here is because I don't want the president that are fighting to bring a good society for our children and our success. So of course, because I used to cheap money, carry money from the government, at the time, I need to be able to tell the government comes there and say no to this kind of thing. I have to come in another form so I can fight this situation. So please, I want to look at that angle. Not just about say that Boko Haram or housing. Who are those people involved? Who are they? What are their interests?
Right, thank you very much.
Hello?
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, like I said, if you look at it before, in the past, you have been living happily. All 34 years, 40 to 30 years ago, nothing like happening. You have maintained live happily within the community. That's thinking, if you don't know why this time around, there were over 10 people. There's something fishy. What is it? The last time something was running happy. What happened now? What happened now? This is something that you, the media, should check.
All right.
Because I remember when I was growing up, you understand, when I was growing up, the husband were there, they live around with our community, with their cow. You understand? But I cannot say there's no problem. There's a problem, but that problem does not generate the way it's happening now. That's saying too. We can be able to solve the problem within the community. But now it's become something harder, hard-weighing, and well, that has been there before for almost 50 years or 100 years. The residents become level. Washington, look at it carefully. So you need everyone to be able to just, because Nigeria is our place, it's our country. If you're able to bring a justifiable issue that's happening.
Could you please wrap up? Our time is fast spent. We need to be done with this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, like I said, either media have the responsibility to tell people what is right. To be able to see the kind of truth.
Oh, so sorry. We've lost the call and our time is fast spent. Now his point really is that we should look at the underlying factor behind the Fulani herdsmen. Now Boko Haram to him is on one side, but he thinks this is politically, motivated. So the people behind the Fulani herdsmen, that is exactly what he's talking about. I'm talking about being politically motivated. What do you think we're going to face next year, during an election? Because if going by what he's saying is all about politics, it means it's dangerous for us because we have less than a year to move into an electionary time.
Like if you listen to me from the beginning, I said there are so many other reasons why we are not being able to fight this headlong and be able to succeed, and the politics that is in it is also an aspect of why this is happening at this material time, and there is no doubt about it, right? We know that the opposition or people who maybe don't like this government, may try to do things. The same thing was said in the past administration, and some people disagreed when the Boko Haram was busy terrorizing everywhere. Some people argue that it wasn't a strategy. Politics. Yes, some people argue that it was a strategy to blackmail the government as at that time.
Okay.
So if it is happening now, well, I won't be surprised that it's the same thing
is happening.
It's happening.
And who knows? So, by the time we try to or clamp down on herdsmen, what happens?
Another one will come up.
It's probably a year before the electionary.
Exactly.
What happens?
So that's to say that this is a bigger challenge for our security operatives. Since it's becoming more like a tradition, it's becoming more reoccurring, that means that you need to adopt, other strategies other than the ones that you have been using all along to fight this. These issues, I feel, is more investigative than any other, thing. You need to adopt a more investigative approach to it, than just carrying weapons, going to certain locations and just, mounting checkpoints here and there and so on. It goes beyond that. Investigation. Nigeria must take advantage of that and make it and do.
Now, lastly, we're so sorry we can't pick more calls now because of our time. Now, lastly, looking at this, talking about the killings we are having in the country and having a view of next year's election, which is fast approaching and is being a kind of a thought in everybody's mind. Now, what are the things or what are the strategies you think Nigerian police? I don't want to ask you if you think we can have a peaceful election next year. It's sure. We believe in God that it's going to be sure. But looking at the security, part of it, what do you think are the immediate strategies, that the security operatives should be able to adopt to make sure that this is either brought to the minimum or totally, taken off?
Well, if you look at the records, if you look at it, if you look at the fight against terrorism and Boko Haram, towards the end of the past administration, if you notice, there seemed to be some successes that were recorded before this government came in, right? So when we say there is a political undertone to it, it is on both sides. It's not just by the on the side of the opposition or the incumbent. It is on both sides, right? The current government, sorry to say, but it's just thinking aloud, may say that we are going to face it headlong, but when it is at the eve of our election, so that it will boost our pedigree, as a business. It's also something. So, but all we are saying is that it's not worth it. It's not worth the blood
at all.
And then going forward in the next election, we pray and we hope that our politicians would, forget about, doing a do or die kind of politics and then
All right,
deliver
thank
to
you
the
very much, Ayuba, for coming today. Of course, thank you for always being there for us to help us digest this topic. And for the calls we are unable to pick, we are so sorry time, is not on our side. Now, looking at killings, terrorism, Fulani herdsmen, Boko Haram going on in Nigeria, we've had enough, and I hanged. The list is, in fact, if you look into this list, you only shed tears. That's why we had to just pick it, and pick it to just have a random discussion. And of course, looking at the people that were buried yesterday, and you discover that it was more emotional than anybody could think of. Now going back to the Nigerian police, and of course all our security outfits, we can only pray for them and ask for God to give them more power, wisdom to face this. And looking at the next year's election we're going to have, we pray for God's intervention. And of course, my last words to us as Nigerians is, it does not worth it. Killing anybody doesn't worth it. You cannot be justified by religious bias. You can't justify it by ethnicity. You can't even justify it by your personal conviction. There is no reason on earth why you should pick up arms and kill a fellow citizen. So for those of us that want to go in it, or those of us that are being convinced to do it, or those of us that have done it, let us please stop it right now. I mean, the blood of a fellow Nigerian should not be shed unnecessarily. There is no reason why someone's blood should be shed. Now, if we are Nigerians, we believe in one thing. We are looking at how we can promote ourselves as Nigerians. And of course, the issue of security still remains paramount, and it remains everybody's business. It is not just the security outfit. So it means you go ahead and report any suspicious movement you see along. Report to the police. We pray that God will grant them the grace, and of course all of us the grace to stay alive and face it, and be hopeful that next year election will go smooth and free. From me is a goodbye on National Discourse. I still remain Uche Uduma. See you next time tomorrow.